Okay, so we're back, continuing our review of our Ventures Level 3 book, and we'll be working in our workbooks. Alright, so that's the white ones. And we will do a little bit of work in our student books as well, the green one. Alright, as we go through this review. So we're doing Unit 3, and let's start off in Lesson A. Alright, so Unit 3 talks about friends and family. Alright, and more specifically, we're going to be talking about neighborhood problems. Okay, we've talked a lot in class about neighborhoods, what neighborhoods are. Alright, and for this unit, we're going to review neighborhood problems. So let's look at some questions about your neighborhood. All right. So this is just to refresh and to remind ourselves what neighborhoods are, right? So the question is, what is a neighborhood, right? So to me, a neighborhood is the place where you live, right? And where you have people who live next to you, who you share maybe a common street or a common cul-de-sac or a common community. All right, but it's usually just a place where you live, right? In the cities, it could be streets. In the suburbs, it could be developments, housing developments, whatever it is, right? And the next question: how long have you lived in your neighborhood? So, for me, I've lived in this neighborhood in Duluth for 4 years, 4 years, something like that. Are there stores in or near your neighborhood? So for me, yes, there are stores. Actually, there's a store, Publix, not too far away. I could actually walk there if I wanted to. And from there, there's a bunch of stores and restaurants and other places that are near my neighborhood. Do you know your neighbors? So I know a few of them, right? Very nice people around me. So I know a few of my neighbors, at least four of my neighbors. Okay. Have you ever asked your neighbors for help? So for me, I don't think I've ever asked my neighbors for help. But I could be wrong. It could be something small. But I have never asked my neighbors for help for anything big. I don't think I've never had to do that. And then the last question: have you ever offered to help your neighbors? So yes, I've offered to do things like check in on some of my elderly neighbors, just to make sure they're okay. My sons have offered to walk some of my neighbors' dogs and take care of my neighbors' dogs for a few days, and also small things like help a neighbor who had a dead battery and needed a jump, right? So I jumped the battery, helped them start their car. All right. So those are some of the things to get our minds refreshed around neighborhoods and our neighbors. All right. And then again, we're going to be talking about neighborhood problems. All right. So let's get started. All right. So let's start in our student book. All right. Our green book. All right. And let's turn over to page 32. All right. So page 32, Unit 3, Friends and Family. And we're going to start in Lesson A. All right. And in our in our student book, this is what we started with, right? Anna had a dead battery in her smoke alarm in her kitchen, and she couldn't change the battery, so she called her neighbor Maria to see if she could borrow a ladder. And Maria said, "Don't worry about borrowing a ladder. I'll send my husband Daniel over to your house, and he'll change the battery for you." All right, and that's one neighbor helping another neighbor. All right, so that's just to remind us of what we were learning in Unit 3 back when we were in class. So let's now look in our workbooks, our white book. All right, and let's turn over to page 30 in there. All right, so page 30, Unit 3, Lesson A, right? Read and complete the paragraph, then listen. Okay, so this is number 1. So we're going to read this paragraph, I owe you one, all right? But we can also scan the barcode. I've made the barcodes larger. Hopefully this will help you if you want to scan this barcode. If you do not have the book, you can scan the barcode and listen as well, okay? But before we get into the paragraph, I owe you one, right? We have our word box here, our word oval. Let's go over these words to make sure that we pronounce them correctly, all right? If there's any words here that you don't understand, let's take some time to pause the video and look them up, all right? That will help you to better understand it. All right, so let's go over these words. The first word is borrow. Borrow. Next word is broken. Broken. Next word or phrase is came over. Came over. This is a phrase. Next word is complain. Complain. And the next word is favor. Favor. And then the last word is noisy. Noisy. All right. So now that we have these words, we can pronounce them. Practice these words. Let's go ahead and look in our paragraph. All right. So I owe you one. All right. Let's find out what this means. My neighbor Amy came over yesterday to ask a blank. All right. And for this one, the best word that I found was favor. Okay, favor. My neighbor Amy came over yesterday to ask a favor. Her light was blank, and it was too high for her to reach. Okay, so here the best word that I found was her light was broken. Broken. And it was too high for her to reach. She wanted to blank my ladder. So for this one, number 4, the best word that I found was borrow. Okay, borrow. She wanted to borrow my ladder. We had a cup of coffee and started to talk about our other neighbors. 2 weeks ago, they had a party, and Amy told them the music was too loud. Then, last weekend, they had another party. Amy couldn't sleep because they were too blank. For this one, the best one that I found was noisy. Noisy. Amy couldn't sleep because they were too noisy. I said she should blank. to the building manager, and I gave her the phone number. So for this one, number 6, the best one that I found was complain. Complain. I said she should complain to the building manager, and I gave her the phone number. Then I helped her carry my ladder to her apartment. Rita, thanks for your help, she said. I owe you one. All right. So that means basically one person helps another person. So the person who got the help, who received the help, they say, I owe you one. That means I will help you later on. Okay, in the future, I will help you. You help me now, in the future, I will help you. All right. So these are what I got. Hopefully you got the same. All right, if you have any problems with this, let me know, and we can talk about it. All right, so let's move on to 2. Circle the correct answers. Use the information in exercise 1. So we're going to be using this information in A1 to complete A2. So the first one is done for us. Amy asked Rita for a ladder. A ladder, right? Okay. Let's look at number 2. Amy couldn't sleep because her light was broken, the neighbors had a party, she needed to call the manager, she needed to borrow a ladder. Well, she couldn't sleep because B, the neighbors had a party. All right, and it was very loud. All right, let's look at number 3. Amy blank Rita's help. So is it Amy doesn't need Rita's help? Amy doesn't want Rita's help? Amy complains about Rita's help? Or Amy really appreciates Rita's help? So I chose D because she said I owe you one, right? And Amy, Rita helped Amy out. So for this one, number 3, I chose D. Really appreciates. Number 4. Amy owes Rita a blank. Is it Amy owes Rita a favor? Amy owes Rita a ladder? Amy owes Rita a phone number? Or Amy owes Rita a cup of coffee? So I chose the best one that I chose. The best one that I found was A, favor. Amy owes Rita a favor. All right. So these are what I got, and hopefully you got the same. All right. All right, so let's turn the page and go to page 31. Okay, so page 31 in our workbook. Number 3, complete the sentences, right? So we're going to use these words in our word box to complete the sentences 2 through 8. 1 is already done for us. All right. So before we do that, let's go over these words and phrases, and let's make sure that we know how to pronounce these words correctly. All right. So the first one is appreciates. Appreciates. Next one is battery or battery. So the correct pronunciation is battery. Battery. But you might hear American speakers, we tend to be lazy with our T's and turn them into D's, as in day, right? So you might hear the word battery. Battery. It's the same. Okay. The next word is borrow. Borrow. Next one is a phrase, come over. Come over. And remember, come over, that would be a present tense, come over. Complained, complained. Favor, favor. Noise, noise. And then the last one is O. O. And we pronounce this just like you would for a letter, for the letter O, right? O. Okay, so let's look at our sentences here. Number one is done for us. All right. Mary hasn't or has not read this book. She is going to borrow it from me. Okay. Number two, I think our smoke alarm needs a new, I chose the word battery or battery. Meg thanked Tina for her help. She always, I chose appreciates Tina's help. All right. You lent me $10. Here's a dollar. Now I blank you $9. So I chose O. O. Okay. You lent me $10. Here's a dollar. Now I now owe you $9. My neighbors were so noisy last night. I blank to the apartment manager. I picked complained. Complained. My neighbors were so noisy last night. I complained to the apartment manager. Number 6. Our old dishwasher made a lot of blank. Our new one is quiet, so that helps me a lot. So I can say noise, right? Noise, that's the one I chose. Our old dishwasher made a lot of noise. Our new one is quiet. Number 7, could you do me a favor and babysit my children tonight? So it just made it natural that I would say favor. Right? So that's the one that I chose. Could you do me a favor? Right? That's just the one that just fits really, really well in there. Number 8, my daughter wants her friend to blank, but I said no. It's a school night. My daughter wants, present tense, her friend to come over, present tense, but I said no. It's a school night. All right. So those are the ones that I got. Hopefully you got the same. And if not, then let me know. But if you did, we're good. And let's move on. But before we move on in the book to number 4, let's talk about lend and borrow. What the difference is between lend and borrow. All right, I think we talked about this in class, but I want to make sure that we remember what lend and borrow is and how to use them. All right. So lend and borrow are very common verbs. Okay, very common in the English language, and they're confusing. Okay, for many English learners. One reason is because lend and borrow have the same basic meaning, but are used for different directions in English. So what does that mean, directions? Right? So one reason that people get these two confused, is because they have the same meaning, right? But they're used in different directions. Okay? So let's look at the directions. Lend shows that something is temporarily given to another person. So given to another person just for a short time. Okay? Borrow shows that something is temporarily taken from another person. Alright? So borrow is someone taking something from somebody for a short period of time. Alright? So let's look at the direction. The direction is lend to someone. Okay? Lend to someone. Borrow is someone borrow from. Okay? From someone else. Okay? Let's look at some examples. Here's a good example. Anne lent, past tense of lend, lent $150 to Bill. Alright? She gave temporarily $150 to Bill. Alright? Or Anne lent Bill $150. So you can write this two different ways. They mean the same thing. Anne lent $150 to Bill, or Anne lent Bill $150. Notice it's always in the past. Both of these are in the past. Bill borrowed $150 from Anne. Okay, so this is how we use lend in the past. This is how we use borrowed in the past. Let's look at another one. Aaron often lends his car to Brenda. Okay, or you can write this a different way. Aaron often lends Brenda his car. Okay, this is present tense. Brenda often borrows Aaron's car. Alright, so these are the two different ways in present tense that we can use lend and borrow. Okay, so hopefully this helps. If not, if you still have questions, let me know. Alright, send me a message in WhatsApp or in we can talk about it in our Zoom meetings. Alright, but lend and borrow, very similar, right? Mean the same things. It's just how we use them in direction. Alright. Alright, so let's now we can move on.